spirit of entrepreneurship in Africa. So I'm going to locate my talk around there. I heard a written speech, but then I realized that, you know what, as you listen to others, you know, you want to integrate what others have been saying. So I want to talk about the spirit of entrepreneurship, going back to prehistoric times. Firstly, entrepreneurship in Africa is not a new phenomenon. It predates Jon Schumpeter. You know, those of you who are scholars of entrepreneurship, you always want to talk about the Schumpeterian theory of entrepreneurship, who is the scholar that others believe he was the first one to define what entrepreneurship is. But entrepreneurship in this dear continent that is inhabited by the majority Bantu people existed before we defined, or scholars defined, what entrepreneurship is. Africa, which is my argument this evening to challenge you, is Africa has always been entrepreneurial. When you locate Africa in pre-colonial times, enterprise or enterprising was a way of life. Challenging all of us, there was no man whose livelihood or sustenance would depend on another person. Each person had to have a product through which you use your product to exchange in a bartering system, exchange of goods for what I don't have. That's pre-colonial Africa. And there are institutions that research has actually proven to us that we had a dynamic and an amazing economic system before. You can talk of the likes of the Timbuktu. You can talk of the lives of Mapungubwe. You can talk of the lives of the Great Zimbabwe and many other ancient civilizations that anthropologists have actually revealed to us, come out with evidence that as a continent and as a people, we were enterprising before colonization. We had vibrant hubs of trade, finance, and craftsmanship. Long distance trade routes connected communities across the continent and beyond. Even when some historians narrate about what happened in 1652 in Cape, that was not actually a destination, but it was a filling station because there was lots of trade happening there. Exchange of minerals, exchange of gold, exchange of salt, exchange of ivory, textiles, as well as ideas existed in pre-colonial times. So these early African entrepreneurs built value through networks, trust, and innovations. Principles that remain central to entrepreneurship today. Do you agree with me? That as an entrepreneur, you need to have network. You need to have trust. You need to be trustworthy. And you need to be innovative. And innovation doesn't necessarily mean that there's technology involved. It's even how you present your product or how you reach your market. It can be entrepreneurial or innovative, sorry. So I argue this evening to say, I'm not blaming history. I think the program director did mention that we cannot blame history. I just want to locate us as a people to make us feel proud that our entrepreneurial DNA predates us. Colonialization, unfortunately, disrupted this trajectory because the colonial systems restructured our economies for extraction, displacing indigenous enterprise in favor of labor for colonial industries. This is where we see the displacement of people from the rural villages or communities to be located in the cities, behlala ema hostel, providing labor to industries, and the big ones being the mining industry. You can actually even locate, it's interesting when you look at even the South African history or the history of the South African universities, that when there was a lot of economic activities in Kimberley, about 110 years ago, in Langlaagte, when gold was then discovered in the Witwatersrand Basin, we then saw the movement of the economic activities shifting from Kimberley and moving into what we call today Johannesburg. And within and around that area, we have a lot of hostels that were housing men coming from where? From the villages, no longer, participating in the African way of entrepreneurship or enterprising. So, but however, despite the disruption, entrepreneurship, I argue that it survived. But it became largely informal. Trading services and small-scale production, they still sustained African communities. It's interesting that when you talk to communities that had a lot of African migration or labor, when even those men would go to Johannesburg working the mines, it's not like they were sending food back home every month. I had my grandfather who worked in the Johannesburg mines in the 1950s. He will only come home once a year in December with only a few plastics of goodies. What were the kids eating for the other 350 days in a year? The African setup were enterprising. It was still entrepreneurship. Post-independence, Africa brought renewed hope. We then saw a path of industrialization. Yes, South Africa is a bit excluded in that because here you locate it between the 1960s and the 1980s. Africa started being independent in the 1960s, the first countries to be independent. And then you saw some industrialization of certain countries and pushing towards that. And then by the 90s, again, we saw a shift towards liberalization and the private sector. But again, you saw the state-owned enterprises taking a big share of economic output. Here we now talk of your ISCOs, we talk of your Sasols, big employers. But still, the informal sector on the sidelines was still sustaining people. It still grew, showing once again the resilience and adaptability of African entrepreneurs. 2000 to the present, you see Africa now moving into a new phase when the big industries start shedding jobs. In terms of the net jobs, you're starting to see a decrease because of the mechanization of the automation. You can say it's even AI. Yes, it's AI. Starting to replace manual labor. So you have a decrease, and that's why we're still struggling today with a high unemployment rate. That is increasing every year. But then you start seeing opportunity-driven entrepreneurship starting to emerge on the continent. Instead of just necessity-driven, where people just had to eat, you start seeing opportunity-driven. This is where you start seeing your business incubators starting to come up. In South Africa, you start locating that by 1998, you start having your first business incubators coming up to sustain and support these entrepreneurs. Creative industries, you start seeing them come up. Agribusinesses coming up and reshaping our economies. And this is where our universities then enter the picture. Because the university, as we knew it then, and some people as they know it today, if they see it today, it's still very much Eurocentric and a bit of a colonial creation, where it's producing graduates and products for what? For the labor market. But now our economy, which is the labor market, is not growing. So this is where the question and the challenge to universities comes to say, what type of graduates are we producing? Are we adding to unemployment? Yes, some scholars will challenge that to say, is that the role of the universities? Others will argue to say, in any economic sense, if there is an entity that produces products that no one wants, that company actually should liquidate. So universities have got this challenge of retooling, rethinking, remodeling the type of a graduate that they produce. The job market has shrunk, is not there. So what type of graduates are we then producing? This is where I say the role of the university now come into the picture. What is the role of our university? What is the role of the University of Zululand? I'm happy that, Prof, you did say we are actually looking at the model of cooperatives. The model of cooperatives is not a new concept. It's a pre-colonial concept. You know that, right? If I had a field, I wanted to plant this field, maybe I only have 2 oxen, what would I do? I will talk to my neighbors. My neighbors will come and help me plow the field, help me plant. That's a model of cooperatives working together. So the University of Zululand has its finger on the pulse, if I may argue. So we see now the university sector having an existential question. Some scholars are actually arguing that our unemployment, our graduate unemployment is no longer an economic issue, but it's now a national security issue. We've got young people with so much energy, with knowledge, but what are they doing if they are not participating in the economy? The university then needs to start introducing programs that create and that produce graduates that participate in the economy in different formats. Nothing wrong with unemployment. But another form of economic participation being entrepreneurship. Let's produce graduates who think entrepreneurially, who have got entrepreneurial attributes and competencies, things like resilience, problem solving. Firstly, maybe problem identification and problem solving. A lot of ills that the world is faced with. I was at the InterVarsity. I was here in the morning, then I went to the InterVarsity. There is a lady who actually presented a product, which is it's a skin product, that she struggled with her skin because of using, the current cosmetics that are dominating the market, until she discovered that, no, man, where I grow up, there are these herbs, there are these vegetables. I've got the knowledge from university. I can actually create my own ointment that are natural, that are sensitive to the type of skin that I have. And universities then need to produce such type of graduates that produce and create solutions. So across our universities, therefore, we need to rethink our teaching, our research, and our community engagement. I come from a university, it was mentioned, I'll mention it, where I used to work. We actually discussed this. Their slogan at some point in time, it was Vets for Good. So there was that question when we were looking at the innovation strategy, community engagement, but Vets for Good, for whose good? Who does the university exist for? You are within a community. Who do you exist for? So across our universities, therefore, we need to consider and rethink curriculum reform. How do we embed entrepreneurship in faculties right across our university? Not only focusing in the faculties of commerce, law, and management that teach entrepreneurship programs, but right across in engineering, in health sciences, in humanities, in other fields, in your natural science. We need graduates that come from there that think entrepreneurially. Somebody argued to say we need to actually humanize the other sciences. How do we support student entrepreneurship? Do we support student entrepreneurship in our university? Do we introduce them to entrepreneurship? Is there our environment enabling entrepreneurship? Are our policies supporting student entrepreneurship? Or we see these students that are doing entrepreneurship as a nuisance and a disturbance to their normal academic program? Do we have incubation hubs at our universities? And when I talk about student entrepreneurship, the people who have a lot of interface with students at our university are the academics. Are we considering our academics? Are we pulling along with our academics to move with us in this new remodeled curriculum of embedding entrepreneurship in the university curriculum? Partnership ecosystems. Are we bringing partners that are like I'll give you a time, beautiful bank, that supports inclusive? Are we bringing partners that are creating an enabling environment, linking your quadruple helix prof, your government, your private sector, global partners, civil society, in the creation of graduates that will then participate in the economy? And this is simply not about adding a course on entrepreneurship, but it's about transforming our universities into platforms for innovation, where students are empowered to move beyond being job seekers to be job creators. Lastly, focusing on the issue of the spirit of entrepreneurship in the university context. What does the spirit of entrepreneurship look like in our university sector? Is it about mindset? Do we cultivate resilience? Do we cultivate creativity? Are we driving and enabling opportunity-seeking behaviors? It is this university, if you're not aware, but I think I saw that this evening is about entrepreneurship, right? So which means you're supposed to know all the entrepreneurship activities that are happening at your university. Do you know that this university produced graduates that are going to the ladies that are selling bananas? When the bananas become, rotten, they take those bananas to create wine. This university, the University of Zululand, AL Winery. When I first met them, it was not actually in the EDHE program. I met them at Enactus last year, where I was a national judge. Then they came through EDHE and they won. And they won. So I'm mentioning this to say, so when you talk about supporting entrepreneurship, yes, we are scholars, we are academics of entrepreneurship, but it must go beyond just saying we are an entrepreneurial university. It must translate to practical, tangible, where an academic says, I want to mentor them. There is an entrepreneur who has an amazing product. It also means you need to be a market for the student entrepreneurs from UniZulu. You must be the market. Who do you expect to buy their product before you? They are your product. Consume your own product. That's how you support and enable. I'm not even going to move into the procurement policies because that's another different ball game. But you also need to start considering even procurement policies. How do we procure from our own products rather than importing? Importing, I'm not talking about even other countries. I'm talking about even within your community. It starts there. Breaking silos, how do we encourage multidisciplinary collaboration? I'm aware of multidisciplinary research. Do we encourage multidisciplinary collaboration where you've got your students, natural sciences, coming into a hackathon with your students in your humanities and your economic and management sciences? Do we build ecosystems that create environments where ideas meet mentorship, funding, and markets? Do we solve the problem for our communities? Do we produce graduates that will develop solutions that are relevant to our realities? Colleagues, the spirit of entrepreneurship in Africa, I argue to say, it's not something that we are importing. It's something that we have. We just need to reawaken it. A spirit that has always been a part of who we are as Africans. And our universities have a historic opportunity. Maybe let me come home. University of Zululand has a historic opportunity and responsibility to formalize, nurture, and scale this spirit in ways that respond to our social and economic context. So as we look ahead, Program Director, as I close, the task is clear. Let's embed entrepreneurship not just into the curriculum, but into the culture of our university, so that it becomes a defining characteristic of a University of Zululand graduate. I thank you.
Yes, let's give him another round of applause. As much as I would love to reflect on his speech, however, I do have an announcement. Before I announce, may I give the floor to Professor Geling?
And there's James. James is going to tell you I just want to add and tell Mr. Mnyeni something. We would have loved to bring tonight total different entrepreneurs, but unfortunately, they have to go to school tomorrow morning, and that is that the University of Zululand is currently, and I'm looking to see where's Ms. Ayandibu, Dr. Ayandibu. She's training, I think, 350 grade 7 children on a weekly basis, using 20 volunteers from the university, students, and she's training them on a program that's called the Economic Entrepreneurship Education Program. It's a program that is supposed to take, yes, it's actually a 3-year program that we are doing in 1 year because of funding problems. And these 300 grade 7s are learning in a classroom, what we call a classroom economy. It is, when they come to work, they must sign in, they get some work to do, they create something, they make something, they build things, etc. They learn the terminology of entrepreneurship and economics. And then at the end of this, they're supposed to, well, part of the whole goal of this is that they take all of these skills home in terms of saving, sharing. So the Ubuntu principle is extremely important to us. But we couldn't bring grade 7s here and let them sit so for such a long time. So we would love to invite you at one time to come and see our economy that's called Tembe, and where they learn how to be entrepreneurs in this hypothetical economy. So just another dimension. So we're working from the grade 7s, not only from the first year level onwards. Thank you so much.
May I kindly call Ms. Zet Magula to the podium to introduce also one of our guest speakers, Mr. Msawenkosi Mnyeni, who will be talking about entrepreneur and business leader. Can we give her a round of applause as she introduces our guest speaker?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to our leaders. Special greetings to everyone who's joining here this evening. A very welcome to all of us. Imagine building a business empire that spans everything from trucking to tourism, and then using that influence to uplift communities, create jobs, and drive investment across the country. Our next speaker has done exactly that. He's not only a serial entrepreneur, but a strategic powerhouse who's made his mark in boardrooms, in government, and on global stage as well. He brings a wealth of entrepreneurial skills and business expertise to the company he's a founder of. He sits as a director and a board member on several companies, and he was recently appointed as a chairman of the Board for Trade and Investment KwaZulu-Natal. He is a founder and chairman of the Mnyeni Group and owns several companies across a diverse range of businesses, including trucking, retail, insurance, financial services, construction, and hospitality. He has studied extensively locally and internationally. His qualifications include a BA from the University of Zululand, a HIDR, which is a Master's in Philosophy from Geneva University, IMI program in Boston from Tufts University, and a program for management development from Harvard Business School. He has served over a number of leadership positions, which include in the year 1994 to 1997, where he served as a member of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. He founded Utungulu Investment Holdings in 1996, and he was appointed as a chairman of Tsogo Amsan KwaZulu-Natal for 13 years. In 2025, he was appointed as the chair for Trade and Investment KwaZulu-Natal. His achievements and acknowledgement include the following. He received Business Partner Award for his achievement in empowerment and entrepreneurship in Zululand in 2015, developed Meet Mega Resorts in Umfolozi and Ngutu, which created 220 jobs in construction and 76 permanent roles. He led Utunguli Investment to build community-focused ventures, including small business report, rural infrastructure, IT, finance, financial, and petroleum infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me to welcome Mr. Musa Mieni.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Allow me to be a little bit controversial. Even before I salute you, let me make a few observations. The first one, in matters of religion, you need a measure of faith. In matters of business or entrepreneurship, you need a measure of madness. If you do not have that measure of craziness, you cannot do business. Which means, knowingly, you take money that is safe in a bank account, you risk it in a project that you do not know whether it will succeed. You have to be crazy to do that. If you are not, then you are not going to do any business. Secondly, I've been a student at the University of Zululand, as it is pointed out. My alma mater. When I went there, I was already a photographer from Langezo High School. Because at the age of 16, I said to my dad, don't give me your money. I want to see what would happen to me had I been an orphan. I started building my own wealth. I took myself to high school, took myself to the University of Zululand. First year, I paid upfront. Thereafter, I got scholarships. And I never applied for a single scholarship because I was meritorious. And so I just got merit bursaries until they had to take some of them and give to fellow students. 1972. 1973, I identified an opportunity. That's entrepreneurship. We would have dinner, finish at about 6 p.m., then go to study, sometimes until 2 a.m. By 12 midnight, we were all hungry. And I checked the tuck shop. I found that they were not selling milk. They were not selling mass, sour milk, in the heart of Zululand. Then I went to Clover in Mpangeni, asked for the manager, to see the manager. I was LIT of 19 years. And the workers said, no, you can't see the manager. They argued. Suddenly he appeared and he said, what can I do for you? I said, I have a business proposition. Can we talk? We went into his office and I said, we have about 4,500 students at the university. Your product is not there. I want you to instruct your driver to deliver to this address, and I gave him my room number, block H. Tell him to deliver 12 fresh milk, 12 sour milk. That's how I started. But by 1974, I was taking 500 crates of 24 units each per night. 500 units. Then I went to Umzana because we were not allowed. I spoke to the matrons. I started selling on Umzana. Everybody would come to my room and buy milk. I would save in the bank every Friday, nothing less than 5,000 rands a month, those years. So it was madness and courage. Madness and courage, calculating your risk. Ladies and gentlemen, I also want to make just one point. The University of Zululand is well located. Later on in years, I became a council member. I took issue with the administration to say, why aren't you teaching forestry, science or whatever? You have forestry around you, but people who work at SAPI and Mondi come from afar, and you don't have students who qualify to work in these industries. Why don't you teach marine sciences? You have the harbor, the sea, and everything. Why don't you offer that? Why do you always offer sociology and all of that stuff with lies and lies of theories? Why don't you talk to RBM? Why don't you teach metallurgy? You have got mineral companies around here. Why don't you teach students to be able to take part in what is going on in your environment? I am happy today to hear that entrepreneurship is being taught, but do emphasize that there is a need for us to create a fund. You can have ideas and all of that, but it comes down to funding. Sorry, can I have some water? So, with my spirit, I employ just over 2,000 employees at the moment, and I create jobs in a variety of sectors. Currently developing what is called Waterstone, which is 10,810 new houses, ranging from the entry point up to multi-million upmarket houses, up to 800 square meters under roof. And it's a new town altogether, because again, I studied this Umhlatuze area. I said, okay, Richards Bay doesn't have much space. You have the ocean, you have forests, and it can expand. I looked at Mpangeni. I remembered my days as a student in 1977 to 1972. It had always been small with Sanlam. And I said, but this town can grow. It's caged in these cane fields. So I bought a cane field, 445 hectares. And at the time, the city suddenly started to look for space to expand. I said, come to me, talk to me. Then I sold to the Department of Human Settlement 345 of those hectares. I kept for myself 100. But I made it a point that as a condition of sale, I will be the implementing agent. That's it. So I have to develop that. So, program director, the dean, Professor Khailan, all the executives from the university. This is not flat. Executives from Absa Bank, and thank you very much for piloting this and funding this. I understand you have done that. Now I know where my bank charges go. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed with great appreciation and honor for me to stand before you to talk about Africa as a beacon of strength. I added hope, stability in times of turbulence. As my predecessor here, the speaker, Dr. Kumbo, indicated, Africa has always been a pioneer in many respects. Can I tell you that when planet Nibiru was in trouble in primordial history, the so-called supernaturals went around the universe looking for gold and ultimately landed at the Persian Gulf looking for gold, and they found it in Africa. They needed gold and they still need gold, and that is where it is going even today. 485,000 years ago, they started mining gold in the areas of Randfontein, Johannesburg, Zimbabwe. When you hear people talk of Zimbabwe ruins, that's where they used to be, to live there, and started mining gold. And they would take it to their planet, crush it into powder, spread it up into the atmosphere, because their ozone layer was depleting very fast, and it was going to be dangerous. They were desperate, and Africa became their hope, their strength, and they survived. Even today, gold is taken up there. You ask yourself, where is gold going to? They have been mining it for 400,000 years, non-stop, 24/7. Where does it go to? Does it go to London, to Washington? The amount of gold that is being mined all the time. You have to read the Lost Book of Enki by Professor Zachariah Sitchin. You have to read the book by Professor Jonathan Black, The Secret History of the World, and many others. We can debate this. We can also inform you about how everything else started. Not only that, Africa also became a haven, a sanctuary for Jacob's sons, according to the Bible. When there was starvation, drought in the Canaan area, that particular part of the world, which we learned in the 1960s as Northeast Africa, and then it was changed to be the Middle East, depending where you are standing to call it middle. If you are standing in London, you would say middle, Near East, Middle East, Far East. Depends. But we called it Northeast Africa. Now Asians call it West Asia. They came to Egypt. That's where they were saved, because Africa was their hope, was their beacon of strength. They lived there for 400 years. Not only that, when King Herod wanted to kill Jesus, because as a Herodian line, he was not entitled to be the king of the Jews, And then the king of the Jews was born, and he didn't know what was going to happen to him. So he sent his Inkabi to go around killing little boys that had been born. But Mary and Joseph took the baby, went to Africa. Africa again saved our future savior. You're talking about bartering system, that is very true. Africa today is still a beacon of hope. The Northern Hemisphere is on the brink of destroying itself with nuclear. And very, very wise multi-billionaires are already investing in game reserves in Africa. Because when that happens, they will fly into Africa and be secured. Those who are super, super rich will go to Mars. Are we together? Simply because Africa is not just offering a sanctuary, but it is offering opportunities which have been denied deliberately through a master plan to keep Africa poor and dependent on their colonial capitals. It's not an accident. And our hope is that amongst the young leaders like Ibrahim Traoré and many young leaders in business, African children, black and white, there is a mind shift. Because when you are an honorable, patriotic African leader, Western powers eliminate you quickly. They first demonize you until the whole world believe you are worth dying. You deserve it. And then they will do that. There is a slogan that is used by a certain country, I won't mention. Their intelligence agency says, by deception, thou shalt do war. And when you look at all the wars, they were started through deception. Saddam has got weapons of mass destruction. When they go there, there are no weapons. Iran is developing a nuclear. They bomb. When they go there, Iran is not developing that. By deception, thou shalt do war. Now, Africa is therefore offering all these people around hope. And I'm therefore going to define and say, by Africa, we mean the whole continent, which is called today Africa. It was not called Africa from the beginning. It was called by the Arabs Al-Kebulani, and the gods called it Eden. Eden. And because you had to be dislodged from your history, then General Africanus changed the name and called it Africa, so that when you read the Bible and you see the word Eden, then you must not associate that with yourself. When you colonize people, you steal their identity first, and then you steal their gods, so that they will pray to wrong gods, calling them by foreign names. Then you are complete. Because if you don't know who you are, your identity has been stolen, then the forces will do whatever they like. I just recall what Lord Macaulay said when he addressed the House of Lords on the 2nd of February, 1835. He said, and I quote, I have traveled the length and the breadth of this continent, and I have not come across a single beggar. I have not come across a single thief. So are the high morals of these people, meaning us. We cannot dominate them unless, and I propose, we disconnect them from their rich spiritual history and their rich educational history, and instill in them a sense of low self-esteem and teach them to believe that anything and everything that comes from abroad is superior to theirs, especially from England. If we can get them to have that low self-esteem, we will be able to dominate them. This is why today the self-hate amongst Africans is so terrible. You just stand there and say, why do you hate yourselves? You even watch in the street when a black person is walking along the street, the black driver comes pretty close to him. But when a white person is far away, he makes sure that he drives far away from him. Come on, guys, we observe. Self-hate, you have to overcome this mentality of self-hate, even refusing to support one another's businesses. And you even say, I'm not going to make a black man rich. Professor Khailan, you might not have heard these things, but it is true. Unless you, Duchess, change your self-image and start loving yourself, believing in yourself, Africa cannot be saved. This is why even today people steal money intended for development, and they take it to Switzerland. They take it to all countries in Europe, even now. They don't invest it in their country. At least if they stole and invested it in the country, it would be better. They are sitting with cash in their houses. They don't know what to do and how to spend it until they are caught. Because if you deposit more than 50,000 in the bank, you have to declare. Now they have a problem. They are sitting with cash, and it's not in circulation. That has got nothing to do with apartheid. It has got to do with your own mentality. You can't keep on blaming other races. No, look inside you, and then you will know the answer. So when we are talking about Africa, we need to be very mindful of who we are and why we are here. But I believe Africa is going to make it, provided we change. Number one, I am chairman of Trade and Investment, KZN, and we are looking to do something wonderful during my tenure. I'm just from a meeting where we presented our proposal. 2 months into the office, we are saying the Act allows us to form subsidiaries. Why have you not formed subsidiaries? So that these subsidiaries can form SPVs that can invite people to participate, because you can't participate in a government agency. But a wholly owned subsidiary with SPVs that specialize, then you can participate. We are looking at mega projects that will help this province. We are looking at small and medium-sized entrepreneurs or enterprises. When we go to India, as we will be going to India, we are going to harness that kind of support to say, who can we match with this one in our country, in this province? I'm about this province. Who can we match? We go to China. We say, you belong to this class. Who do we have? We need the names of all these entities in our offices so that we can match them, marry them. In agriculture, I've just bought a farm of 518 hectares outside Vryheid. We are going to develop young people as farmers in food production especially. Because you cannot tell me you are a liberated nation when you are wearing from your foot up to your head something produced by other people. Whatever you eat on your table is produced by other people. What are you producing? The consumer mentality has got to go away. And you graduates, you have to say, I am not getting educated in order to be employed. I'm getting educated in order to be able to create jobs and become an employer myself. Don't ask me how did I do it. I just worked hard. So teaching entrepreneurship is very important, people acquiring skills. But you are born with that spirit you were talking about, Dr. Gumbo. You have to have it in you. That is why some people have got all the theory, all the knowledge, but they don't have it in their DNA. If you have it in your DNA, you'll be surprised just how much you can complement yourself with, between, that is the skills and the spirit that you have in your DNA. How many people suffer with PhDs? How many people live very miserable life with all, and PhDs, I've been very critical of that. I was admitted at Princeton University to do my PhD, and I changed my mind. I said, no, PhD, I'll see it later on. Let me go back to the struggle, because it was those years. Because you don't rush to have a degree for the sake of having a degree. Having a PhD, you research and you write your thesis, and after your promoters have, stamped it, etc., and you graduate, humanity does not benefit a thing from your research. A thing. To make an example, I was talking to another a guy with a PhD, and I said, my brother, don't brag about this. You did a PhD analyzing amahubo, amabuto. Amahubo, you understand? Amahubo, amahubo, amabuto. No, man. Research something that solves a human problem. And then people can benefit from your research and findings. Talking about that, Professor, I think it is very critical that you establish a strong research and development wing at the university and partner up with large corporations to finance those things. I mean, I was at Harvard Business School. We used to work with MIT across the bridge, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And research is the name of the game. You either, if you are at Harvard, you either publish or perish. Publish or perish. If you have a professorial status, they take it away if you don't publish regularly and research regularly. Let us not be mediocre. If you are a specialist in this, go for it. Go for it. And I'm saying, in short, we expect MBALI to be a real flower, and Africa must blossom, but not only blossom for decorative purposes, but it must convert into fruits, fruits that are meaningful to human life. We can say all things. What I want to know is that after all the speeches, and thank you for your listening capacity, after all the speeches have been delivered, APSA, university, leadership, what do we do with them? How do we collate all the information we gather here to implement certain things and say this is the way we are going. Because you can deliver speeches and speeches. I've had so many speeches in my life. We want pragmatism. So that that young graduate can come to us at the trade and investment and say, I'm starting such and such. I don't have the means. Then we analyze your concept, your project, and look at it from all angles. We say, ABSA, is this bankable? And if ABSA says, yes, we are interested, and you say, let's do it jointly. So that that young person will then say, after attending MBALI conference, I got this, and after that, I am this. So that we don't play with words and long speeches, beautiful speeches. I'm a practical businessman. I sold milk and mass, and people ate, and they were okay. Thank you very much.
Prof, may I proceed? Ladies and gentlemen, may I please have your attention? There has been a slight change of our program. May I kindly ask the VIPs to go and help themselves with dinner outside? It's ready. After they are done, my judges and then the rest of the floor. With that being said, can Dr. Zikali then prepare her next session, which is the pitching of the innovating ideas from the students? Where are you, Dr. Zikali? Yes. So, yeah. And then we can multitask. Is the gift here? Yeah. One last announcement. The last item has been cancelled as well. So our last item is by Dr. Zikali, who's going to be doing the pitching session. So we are almost done with our program. So yeah, stay put. Oh.